You ever meet someone who just decides you're their enemy? Not because you did something wrong, not because you were rude, but because in their mind, you were violating some invisible rule they invented. That's how this whole nightmare started. With a trash can. A stupid, ordinary plastic trash can. I moved into my new house on a quiet suburban street, thinking I'd finally found peace. Tree-lined sidewalks, friendly older couples walking dogs, kids riding bikes. The kind of neighborhood that looks safe enough to leave your car unlocked overnight. The kind of place where you assume drama doesn't exist. I was wrong. Very wrong. 2 weeks after I moved in, I met her. Karen. Not her real name, but if the haircut fits, she was mid-40s, perfectly manicured blonde bob, sunglasses permanently glued to her face, posture so stiff it looked painful. She lived directly across the street, in a house that looked like it came out of an HOA magazine. White fence, matching lawn decor, symmetrical flower beds. The kind of house where you just know someone measures their grass with a ruler. The first interaction seemed innocent. I was rolling my trash bin out to the curb on Tuesday night. It was late, around 10 p.m. I'd worked overtime and forgot earlier. No big deal, right? Wrong. Excuse me. Her voice sliced through the night like a car alarm. I turned around and saw her standing on her driveway, arms crossed, chin tilted up. Yes? I asked, confused. You can't put your trash out this late, she said sharply. I blinked. It's pickup tomorrow morning. That's not the point, she snapped. People can see it. It ruins the aesthetic of the street. The aesthetic. I looked at my trash can, then at her, then back at the trash can. I actually laughed because I thought she was joking. She wasn't. This neighborhood has standards, she continued. If you're going to live here, you need to respect them. Something about her tone lit a fuse in my chest, but I kept it calm. It's just a trash can. Her lips pressed into a thin line. Just don't make it a habit. She turned around and walked back into her house like she'd just issued a formal warning. I stood there on the sidewalk, stunned. I should have known then. I should have known she wouldn't stop. The next week, I rolled my trash out earlier, around 7 p.m., normal time, still well within city rules. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of knocking. Not polite knocking. Aggressive, rapid-fire knocking like the door owed someone money. I opened it and there she was. Karen. Sunglasses on, clipboard in hand. Yes? I asked, already annoyed. You left your trash can on the curb too long, she said. I looked past her shoulder. It was 9:12 a.m. Trash pickup usually happened between 8 and 11. I was planning to bring it in after work, I said. That's unacceptable, she replied. Trash cans should be removed immediately after collection. It lowers property values. I stared at her. It's been less than 2 hours. She flipped a page on her clipboard like she was documenting a crime scene. I'm just trying to help you integrate into the neighborhood. Help, right. Thanks, I said flatly, but I'm good. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. We'll see. And she walked away. That should have been the end. But it was just the beginning. Over the next month, she escalated. Every week, it was something new. My trash can was too close to the curb. My trash can was too far from the curb. The lid wasn't closed tightly enough. A cardboard box was visible inside. A trash bag was slightly overfilled. Every time she'd show up at my door like clockwork. Knock, knock, knock. Always with the clipboard. Always with that fake smile. Always with that tone that implied she was doing me a favor by harassing me. At first, I tried to be reasonable. I'll adjust it next time. Thanks for letting me know. I'll keep an eye on that. But nothing I did was ever good enough, because this was never about the trash can. This was about control. The moment everything shifted happened on a Friday evening. I came home exhausted. Long day. Headache. All I wanted was a shower and silence. Instead, I found my trash can. Gone. Not tipped over, not moved. Gone. I stood on my driveway staring at the empty space like my brain was lagging. Then I saw it. Across the street. On Karen's driveway. My trash can. Sitting neatly next to hers. I walked over, heart pounding. What the hell are you doing? I demanded. She stepped out onto her porch like she'd been waiting. You left it out too long, she said calmly, so I brought it to a more appropriate location. You stole my trash can, I said. I relocated it, she corrected. I let out a sharp laugh. Give it back. Her eyes narrowed. Maybe if you learn to respect community standards? I grabbed the handle and started rolling it back across the street. She followed me. Don't you dare take that tone with me, she snapped. I've lived here for 12 years. I know every rule of this neighborhood. I turned around, voice low. Listen carefully. Stay away from my property. Stay away from my trash can. And stop knocking on my door. Her face went red. You're being hostile, she said. You're being insane. That's when she dropped the line that made my stomach turn. You'll regret this. She said it calmly. Too calmly? And for the first time since meeting her, I felt something that wasn't annoyance. It was dread. That weekend, things got worse. I noticed someone had placed stickers on my trash can. Bright orange ones that read, "Violation. Unacceptable. Neighborhood eyesore." I ripped them off. The next morning, more appeared. Bigger ones. Someone had taken the time to print custom labels. I didn't need proof to know who was doing it. But I still tried to give her the benefit of the doubt. Until Monday. I opened my front door and found a typed letter tucked under my mat. No signature. Just a title at the top. Notice of Community Concern. It listed complaints about me. Trash can visibility, lack of curb appeal, disregard for neighborhood harmony, disrespectful attitude. At the bottom, if behavior does not improve, further action may be taken. My hands shook as I read it. This wasn't normal. This wasn't a nosy neighbor. This was someone obsessed. And she was escalating. I stood in my living room, staring out the window at Karen's house. Her curtains twitched slightly. She was watching me. I knew it. That's when the thought crossed my mind. A dangerous thought. If she wants to obsess over my trash can, maybe I should give her something worth obsessing over. But I wasn't angry enough yet. Not yet. Because I still didn't know just how far she was willing to go. And I had no idea that the next knock on my door would change everything. The next knock came 3 days later. Not on my front door. On my reputation. I found out the hard way. It started when I went to check my mail after work. As I walked down the driveway, I noticed something taped to the community mailbox. A bright yellow flyer. At first I thought it was some garage sale ad. Then I saw the headline. Concerning neighbor activity. My stomach dropped. I stepped closer and started reading. It was about me. Not by name, but painfully obvious. Residents have reported repeated violations involving improper trash can placement, lack of neighborhood pride, and hostile behavior when approached. Hostile behavior. There was more. Homeowners are encouraged to document these disturbances and report ongoing issues to ensure our community remains safe and orderly. Safe. Orderly? Like I was some kind of threat. I stood there staring at the paper while 2 neighbors walked by, slowed down, and read it too. One of them glanced at me, then looked away quickly. I felt heat crawl up my neck. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every interaction in my head. Every knock, every complaint, every look of superiority. This wasn't about trash. This was a campaign. The next morning it got worse. I stepped outside and nearly tripped over something on my porch. A box. A large cardboard box. Inside were my trash bags. Ripped open. Rotting food. Used paper towels. Coffee grounds. Everything dumped messily inside like some kind of disgusting delivery. On top of the pile was a sticky note. You forgot to secure your waste. This attracts pests. My hands shook. This wasn't just harassment anymore. This was intimidation. I took photos of everything. The box, the trash, the note. And for the first time, I seriously considered calling the police. But I knew how it would go. It's a neighbor dispute. Hard to prove. Tried to resolve it civilly. Civilly? With someone who was now dumping my garbage on my porch? Yeah, right. That afternoon I saw her again. Karen was outside watering her flowers like everything was perfectly normal. I walked straight across the street. She noticed me immediately. Of course she did. Her mouth curled into that familiar tight smile. "Can I help you?" she asked. I held up my phone. "Did you put my trash on my porch?" Her expression didn't change, but something flickered behind her eyes. "I have no idea what you're talking about." "Someone ripped open my bags and left them on my doorstep." "That sounds like a hygiene issue," she said smoothly. "Perhaps you should be more responsible with your waste." My jaw tightened. "Are you serious?" "Lower your voice," she said sharply. "You're being aggressive again." There it was. The narrative she was building. The difficult neighbor. The angry homeowner. The problem resident. "You need to leave me alone," I said quietly. "This has gone too far." She tilted her head. "Or what?" I stared at her. For a long second, neither of us spoke. Then she said it again. "You'll regret this." That night I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open. I typed, "How to deal with a harassing neighbor." I scrolled through forum posts, legal advice threads, Reddit stories. Most of them ended the same way. Move. Ignore them. Document everything. But one comment stuck with me. Bullies only stop when they lose control of the narrative. Control of the narrative. Karen was controlling mine. She'd already started turning neighbors against me. Posting flyers, planting doubt. If I did nothing, it would get worse. I didn't want revenge. I wanted peace. But I was starting to realize something. Peace wasn't going to come from backing down. A week later, the final straw happened. Trash day morning. I woke up early around 6:30 a.m. and looked out the window. My trash can was tipped over in the street. Trash scattered everywhere. Seagulls tearing into bags. Cars swerving around the mess. And standing on her porch, coffee in hand, Karen, watching. Not helping, not surprised, watching. Like she'd been waiting for the show. I ran outside. By the time I started cleaning it up, a few neighbors were already out too. And they were watching me, whispering. One woman shook her head. A guy across the street muttered, "Unbelievable." They thought it was me. They thought I did this. Karen's campaign was working. As I shoved trash back into bags, I felt something inside me shift. Not anger, not frustration, something colder, something clearer. Resolve. If Karen wanted a performance, I would give her one. But I wasn't going to explode. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to make myself look guilty. No, I was going to be patient. Calculated. Because the best traps don't look like traps at all. They look like opportunities. And Karen loved opportunities. That evening I installed a small security camera. Nothing obvious, nothing flashy. Just enough to see my driveway, my porch, and my trash can. I didn't tell anyone. Not neighbors, not friends, not family, and definitely not Karen. Then I waited. 2 days later, at exactly 11:47 p.m., my phone buzzed with a motion alert. I opened the camera feed, and there she was, Karen, standing on my driveway, holding a stack of orange violation stickers, looking around, then bending down toward my trash can. My heart started pounding, not because I was scared, but because now I finally had proof. And Karen had no idea what she'd just done. I watched the footage 3 times, not because I needed confirmation, but because part of me couldn't believe how bold she was. There she stood on my driveway, late at night, casually placing stickers on my trash can like she owned the entire street. No hesitation, no fear, just entitlement. Like she truly believed she was untouchable. I saved the clip to my phone, backed it up to the cloud. Then I sat there in the dark, listening to the refrigerator hum, thinking one thing over and over again. You did this to yourself. Over the next few days, I didn't confront her. That was the hardest part. Every instinct in me wanted to march across the street and shove the video in her face. But I knew better. Because if I showed my hand too early, she'd just pivot, change tactics, play victim. Instead, I played dumb, extra polite, extra compliant, almost invisible. I started waving when she looked out her window. I moved my trash can earlier than usual. I even nodded when she gave me that thin, suspicious smile. And she loved it. You could see it in her posture, in the way she started walking a little taller again, like she thought she'd won. That's the thing about people like Karen. They don't stop when you comply. They escalate when they think they've broken you. And escalate she did. The flyers came back. But this time they were more aggressive. Ongoing disturbances. Disregard for community standards. Residents deserve better. One appeared taped to the stop sign at the corner. Another on the community mailbox again. But the worst one? That one showed up on my car. Slipped under the windshield wiper. I sat there in the driver's seat, staring at the paper, knuckles white around the steering wheel. She wasn't just monitoring my trash. She was tracking me, my schedule, my movements, my habits. This wasn't neighborhood pride. This was obsession. That night I reviewed my camera footage, and I saw something new. Not just Karen, another neighbor. A guy named Mark who lived 2 houses down. He was standing with her on the sidewalk one evening while she gestured toward my driveway, pointing, talking, shaking her head. The next morning, Mark didn't wave back when I passed him. He looked uncomfortable, avoidant. Karen wasn't just harassing me. She was recruiting. And that's when I realized the stakes had changed. If I didn't end this soon, I wouldn't just be fighting one person. I'd be fighting a narrative that could poison the whole neighborhood. So I expanded the plan. Not bigger, smarter. I added a second camera. One pointed directly at the street. One covering my front door. Still discreet. Still legal. Still invisible to anyone who wasn't looking. Then I waited. Because people like Karen don't know how to stop. They only know how to push further. The breakthrough came on a Thursday night. 10:22 p.m. Motion alert. I opened the feed. Karen again. But this time she wasn't holding stickers. She was holding a bag. My stomach dropped. She walked up to my trash can, looked around, and opened the lid. Then she pulled something out of the bag and dropped it inside. Not trash, not food waste, something heavier. Wrapped, deliberate. Then she closed the lid and walked away calmly. I sat there frozen, rewinding the footage, zooming in, enhancing the image. She had planted something in my trash can. On purpose. That was no longer harassment. That was sabotage. And suddenly everything clicked. The flyers, the complaints, the attempts to paint me as a problem. She was building a case. If someone found something suspicious in my trash, who would they believe? The quiet, well-established homeowner of 12 years? Or the hostile new neighbor with ongoing violations? My chest went cold. This wasn't about control anymore. This was about elimination. She wanted me gone. I didn't touch the trash can. Not immediately. Instead, I documented everything. Screenshots, clips, timestamps. Then I called a friend of mine. He worked in property law. I showed him the footage. He went silent for a long moment. Then he said, "You need to be very careful with your next move." "What would you do?" I asked. He thought for a moment, then said, "If she's willing to plant evidence, the only way to stop this permanently is to let her expose herself completely." Expose herself. That's when the idea truly formed. Not a confrontation, not a complaint, a reveal. Something so undeniable, so public, so embarrassing that she could never twist the story again. Not to the neighbors, not to the HOA, not to anyone. The trap wouldn't hurt her, wouldn't break laws, wouldn't cross lines. It would simply let her be herself, on full display. The next morning I opened my trash can. Inside was a sealed Ziploc bag, filled with dog poop, neatly tied, intentionally placed. I don't own a dog. She was trying to make it look like I was letting animal waste rot in my bin. Fuel for complaints, fuel for gossip, fuel for her narrative. I took photos, more evidence, more proof, and then I smiled. Because she had no idea. Every move she made, every step onto my driveway, every action she took, was now part of something much bigger, something she couldn't control. And soon, everyone else would see it too. The trap didn't look like a trap. That was the point. No confrontation, no threats, no sudden change in behavior. Just normal. I kept putting my trash out, kept bringing it in, kept waving politely. But behind the scenes, everything was in place. First, I upgraded the cameras. Not more obvious ones, smarter ones. I added a tiny lens cam inside my front window aimed toward the street. I adjusted angles so they captured my driveway, the sidewalk, the street light, Karen's approach path. The moment anyone touched my trash can. No blind spots. Then I did something else, something strategic. I printed a simple, official-looking sign and taped it to the inside of my front window, barely visible from outside. Smile. Property under video monitoring for security purposes. Not flashy, not threatening, just subtle enough. If Karen noticed it, she'd hesitate. If she didn't notice it, she'd keep going. Either way, I'd learn something. She noticed. I know she noticed because 2 days later, she knocked on my door again for the first time in weeks. I opened it calmly. Her eyes flicked past me toward the window, toward the sign, then back to my face. "I see you've installed surveillance," she said. "For security," I replied, "given the recent disturbances." Her lips tightened. "Recording neighbors without consent can be illegal." "It records my property," I said evenly, "which is perfectly legal." Silence stretched between us. Then she forced a smile. "Well," she said, "I'm glad you're taking community safety seriously." She turned and walked away. But something had changed. Her confidence was shaken. Not gone, just shaken. For 3 nights nothing happened. No stickers, no tampering, no midnight visits. I almost thought she'd backed off. Almost. Then Friday night came, and Karen got sloppy. 11:58 p.m. Motion alert. I opened the feed. There she was again. But she wasn't alone. Mark stood beside her, the same neighbor who'd stopped waving. He looked nervous, uncomfortable, hesitant. Karen, on the other hand, looked energized. She gestured toward my trash can animatedly. Even without audio, I could tell she was ranting. Then she did something perfect. She walked right up to my trash can, pointed at it, and said loudly enough for the camera mic to catch, "This is exactly what I mean. He's doing it on purpose. He's trying to bring down the neighborhood." Mark crossed his arms. "Are you sure?" "Yes," she snapped, "and I'm going to prove it." Prove it? Those words sent a chill through me, because I knew exactly what prove it meant. She reached into her purse, pulled out another Ziploc bag, and dropped it into my trash, on camera, with a witness. while speaking her intent aloud. It was no longer subtle harassment. It was documented malice. I saved the footage immediately. Multiple backups. Cloud, external drive, phone. This wasn't just evidence. This was leverage. The next morning, things escalated fast. I walked outside to find 3 neighbors standing near my driveway. Karen was with them. Of course she was. One of them gestured toward my trash can. "We've had some concerns," the woman said carefully. Karen folded her arms like she was presiding over a courtroom. "Concerns?" I asked. "There have been reports," the man said, "about sanitation issues." Karen jumped in immediately. "People are worried," she said. "They've seen things, smelled things. It's becoming a health concern. A performance, a coordinated one." I nodded slowly. Then I said, "That's interesting." Karen blinked. "Excuse me?" "I said that's interesting," I repeated calmly, "because my cameras show something very different." Silence. Real silence this time. Not awkward, not polite, heavy. Karen's eyes flicked, just for a second, toward my front window, toward the sign, toward the cameras she knew existed. "What cameras?" one neighbor asked. I pulled out my phone. "I've been documenting the repeated harassment involving my trash can," I said, "including footage of someone placing items into my bin after hours." Karen's face lost color, just slightly, but enough. "You can't just," she started. "Would you like to see it?" I asked, still calm. No one answered, but no one said no. We stood there on my driveway, 3 neighbors, Karen, me. I held my phone up, pressed play. The video showed Karen walking up, her voice clearly audible. "This is exactly what I mean. I'm going to prove it." The footage continued. The bag, her hand, the trash can lid closing, Mark's uncomfortable shifting beside her, her confidence, her intent, her sabotage. The video ended. No one spoke. Not immediately. Karen's mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. That's taken out of context," she said weakly. The woman next to her stared. "You said you were going to prove it," the woman said slowly. Karen turned to her. "I meant, you planted that," Mark said quietly. His voice held something new. Not confusion, not discomfort, disgust. Karen looked at him like he'd betrayed her. I didn't gloat, didn't smile, didn't say "I told you so." I just said calmly, "This has been happening for weeks." The neighbors looked at me differently now. Not suspicion, not judgment, but something closer to embarrassment, regret. Because they'd believed her. Because they'd let the narrative form. Because they'd watched me clean up messes she created, and said nothing. Karen took a step back. Her posture collapsed just a little. "Just enough. I was just trying to protect the neighborhood," she said, voice trembling now. "Someone has to care about standards." No one agreed with her. No one defended her. Silence again. But this time, it was her standing in it, alone. That afternoon, the flyers disappeared. All of them. From the mailbox. From the stop sign. From the bulletin board. Gone. By Monday, something else happened. Something unexpected. Karen stopped coming outside. No watering flowers. No clipboard. No patrols. Her curtains stayed closed. Her driveway empty. It would have been easy to call that a win. To let it end there. But I knew better. Because people like Karen don't just stop. They retreat. They stew. They look for a new angle. And I was right. Because 3 days later, I got a letter. Official letterhead. Stamped envelope. From the HOA. The envelope felt heavier than it should have. You know that feeling? When paper suddenly feels like a threat. The HOA logo sat neatly in the corner. Formal, clean, official. Karen's territory. I stood in my kitchen for a full minute before opening it, thumb pressed against the seal, already knowing one thing for sure. She wasn't done. Inside was a typed notice. That formal complaint of ongoing violations. Homeowner conduct review scheduled. Attendance required. They were calling a neighborhood hearing. A panel. A review. A judgment. Karen's final attempt to regain control of the narrative. Except this time, I wasn't unprepared. I sat down at my laptop and opened a folder labeled simply, Documentation. Inside were weeks of camera footage, timestamp screenshots, video clips of Karen trespassing, audio of her admitting intent, footage of her planting items, photos of flyers, images of the trash on my porch, copies of anonymous letters, dates, times, patterns. Everything? Not emotional, not messy, not reactive, organized, clinical, undeniable. If Karen thought she was walking into that HOA meeting as the authority figure, She was walking into her own documentary. The hearing was scheduled for Thursday evening at the community center. I arrived early. So did Karen. She sat at the long folding table near the front, back straight, hands folded, expression neutral. But her eyes kept flicking toward me. Like she was trying to measure how much I knew, how much I had, what I might reveal. 2 HOA board members shuffled papers at the front. 4 neighbors sat in folding chairs behind us, including Mark. The room felt small, airless, heavy with expectation. The chairwoman began. This meeting is to address concerns regarding ongoing community disturbances and conduct issues between residents. Karen nodded solemnly, like she was attending a civic duty. Specifically regarding repeated complaints made by Ms. Thompson. Karen. Real name? Not Karen after all. Fitting. The chairwoman continued. We'll begin by allowing Ms. Thompson to present her concerns. Karen stood, cleared her throat, smoothed her blouse, and began. She spoke about standards, about safety, about pride, about disruptive behavior, about unusual waste habits, about hostility, about declining curb appeal. It was rehearsed, polished, convincing. If I hadn't lived it, I might have believed her too. When she finished, she sat down slowly, confident, like she'd just delivered a closing argument. The chairwoman nodded. Thank you. Now we'll hear from the other party. That was me. I stood, calm, quiet, no speech, no theatrics, just one sentence. I'd like to show you what's been happening. Then I connected my phone to the projector. The room went dark. The screen lit up. First clip, Karen approaching my driveway at night. Second clip, Karen placing stickers. Third clip, Karen opening my trash can. Fourth clip, Karen saying clearly, I'm going to prove it. Fifth clip, Karen planting a bag while another neighbor stands beside her. Sixth clip, trash dumped on my porch. Seventh clip, flyers being placed. No commentary, no emotion, no spin, just reality. Raw, unfiltered, inescapable. When the final clip ended, the projector hummed softly in the silence. No one spoke, not immediately, because the truth doesn't need narration. It just needs space. The chairwoman turned slowly toward Karen. Is this accurate? She asked. Karen didn't answer. Her mouth opened slightly, then closed again. The room waited. Mark shifted in his seat. One neighbor crossed her arms. The chairwoman tried again. Ms. Thompson? Karen's voice came out thin. I was just trying to protect the neighborhood. There it was. Not denial, just justification. The chairwoman leaned back slightly. I see, she said quietly. And that tone? That was the tone of someone who'd already made a decision. The meeting ended quickly after that. No dramatic shouting, no public humiliation, no yelling, just consequences. Official ones, the kind that stick. Karen received a formal violation notice for harassment, a warning for trespassing, a permanent record in the HOA, a directive to cease all contact with me immediately. But that wasn't the part that changed everything. The real shift happened outside the building. Neighbors approached me, one by one, awkward, apologetic, uncomfortable. I'm really sorry, one woman said. We should have asked questions. I feel terrible, another admitted. I just believed her. Mark didn't say much. He just nodded once and said, You didn't deserve that. That was enough. Because what Karen had built was undone. Not by anger, not by revenge, but by truth. The weeks after that were quiet. No knocks, no flyers, no notes, no stickers, no interference. Karen still lived across the street, but she no longer patrolled, no longer watched, no longer performed. She became small, not physically, socially. The neighborhood stopped engaging with her. Conversations ended when she approached. Invitations stopped coming. Smiles disappeared. The power she once wielded evaporated. Not because I demanded it, but because everyone saw who she really was. And once people see behind the mask, it never fully goes back on. One morning, months later, I rolled my trash can out late again. Old habit. Around 10 p.m., I half expected some echo of the past. A voice, a knock, a comment. Nothing happened. The street stayed silent. The trash truck came the next morning like always. No drama, no confrontation. Just normal life. Peace. Earned. Not given. And the irony? The thing Karen never understood? The thing that still makes me shake my head? If she had just left me alone, if she had just minded her own business, none of this would have happened. She would still have her reputation, her influence, her standing. But instead she chose control. She chose obsession. She chose escalation. And in doing so, she built the very trap she fell into. all over a trash can.